We are counting down the 10 biggest blunders in American history. Decisions that began with high hopes, only to unravel with unbelievable consequences. From marketing moves that triggered a nationwide backlash to policies that spiraled into chaos and tragedy, some mistakes cost fortunes, while others shattered lives. Each one earned its place here by showing how good intentions and blind spots can collide in spectacular fashion. So what is the difference between a simple mistake and a true blunder? It is when the fallout is impossible to ignore. Let's kick things off with number 10. In 1985, Coca-Cola made a move that stunned the nation. It scrapped its 99-year-old recipe and rolled out new Coke. Executives were convinced they had the answer to Pepsi's rising popularity. After all, 200,000 blind taste tests showed people preferred the sweeter new formula by a solid margin. Internal memos buzzed with optimism, even as a few voices warned that numbers could not measure nostalgia. The company poured $4 million into marketing, eager to reclaim lost ground. And then came the turning point. Within weeks, phone lines were jammed with 8,000 complaint calls a day, protest groups popped up, and headlines screamed betrayal. After just 79 days, Coca-Cola Classic returned to shelves on July 11th, outselling New Coke 10-1. In the end, all that market science melted in the face of pure brand loyalty. NASDAQ traders cheered as tech stocks soared to dizzying heights. By March 10, 2000, the index hit 5,048, a fourfold jump in just 5 years. Venture capital poured in, reaching $138 billion that year, and companies with little more than a website and a mascot like Pets.com snagged $300 million valuations despite earning less than $1 million. The logic was simple: rack up users first, profits could wait. In 1999 alone, 400 tech companies went public, but fewer than 50 were actually making money. And then came the turning point. The bubble burst in March, and margin calls triggered a panic. The NASDAQ crashed 78% by 2002, wiping out $1.5 trillion in value and costing 500,000 tech jobs. For all the talk of a new economy, the numbers finally caught up, and the crash left investors and workers picking up the pieces. Ford rolled out the Pinto in 1971, desperate to beat Japanese imports to showrooms. Engineers flagged a problem. The gas tank sat just behind the rear axle and was barely shielded. In low-speed crashes, it could rupture and burst into flames. Fixing it would cost $11 per car. But Ford's internal memo, uncovered in 1977, did the math, valuing a human life at $200,000 and burn injuries at $67,000. The company concluded that payouts were cheaper than a recall. And this is where it went off the rails. After 27 burn deaths and 52 lawsuits, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration launched a probe. By June 1978, Ford recalled 1.5 million Pintos. In court, a jury hit Ford with $125 million in punitive damages in the Grimshaw case. The Pinto memo became a symbol of profit trumping safety, and the fallout still haunts corporate boardrooms. In the depths of the Great Depression, more than 40,000 World War I veterans and their families set up camps across Washington, D.C., desperate for early payment of a promised bonus, just $1,000 to keep hunger at bay. President Hoover saw the gathering as a threat, fearing unrest in a city already on edge. On July 28, 1932, orders went out to clear the camps. At 5:33 in the afternoon, General Douglas MacArthur led troops, tanks, and cavalry down Pennsylvania Avenue. Tear gas drifted through the air as soldiers advanced with bayonets fixed. That's when it all flipped. The camps at Anacostia Flats went up in flames. 2 men died and hundreds were injured or left homeless. Newsreels showed veterans and children fleeing burning shanties. The public recoiled. The images haunted Hoover's presidency, and by November 1932, he lost the White House in a landslide. The bonus army eviction became a lasting symbol of government turning its back on its own. August 1814 brought a crisis few in the young republic could have imagined. British troops, fresh from victory in Europe, landed at the Chesapeake and marched on Washington. American leaders counted on militia strength and assumed the Royal Navy blockade, over 700 ships strong, would keep the British occupied at sea. Instead, only about 7,000 hastily assembled militia faced 4,500 disciplined British regulars at Bladensburg. Communication broke down, units scattered, and the defense collapsed in what newspapers soon mocked as the Bladensburg Races. And this is where it went off the rails. British forces marched unopposed into the capital on August 24th, setting fire to the White House and the Capitol. Letters from that night described the sky glowing red and the city in chaos. The loss was a humiliation, but it also lit a fire under American resolve, setting the stage for a new sense of national identity. On April 17, 1961, 1,400 Cuban exiles waded ashore at the Bay of Pigs, armed with CIA training in the hope that Cuba would rise up against Fidel Castro. The plan hinged on airstrikes to cripple Castro's small air force, and on a secret belief that ordinary Cubans would join the fight once the invasion began. President Kennedy, wary of Soviet retaliation, had trimmed back air support at the last minute, insisting on plausible deniability. And that is when it all flipped. Confusion over flight times left the exile pilots arriving late and exposed. Cuban jets strafed the invasion fleet, sank supply ships, and cut off ammunition. The exiles were outgunned, stranded, and pinned down. By April 20th, 1961, the beachhead was lost. 114 dead, 1,202 captured, and U.S. prestige battered on the world stage. The Bay of Pigs became a textbook case of overconfidence and miscalculation in covert warfare. The mid-1980s, the Reagan administration was desperate to free 7 American hostages held in Lebanon and to keep anti-communist forces, the Contras, fighting in Nicaragua. Congress had banned U.S. aid to the Contras, so officials turned to a secret workaround: sell arms to embargoed Iran, then funnel the profits to the Nicaraguan rebels. National Security Council staffer Oliver North managed the operation, using foreign intermediaries like Manucher Ghorbanifar and Yakov Nimrati to mask the money trail. Millions of dollars from missile sales moved through Swiss bank accounts, while memos and flowcharts tracked the covert transfers. And then came the turning point, November 1986, when a Lebanese magazine broke the story. Televised hearings followed, exposing shredded documents, Reagan's shifting statements, and a constitutional crisis. The Tower Commission found that the White House had bypassed Congress, shattering public trust in the presidency, and raising questions that still echo in debates over executive power. The night before launch, Morton Thiokol engineers pleaded with NASA to halt the countdown. The forecast called for a bone-chilling 27 degrees, far below the 53-degree minimum their O-rings had ever survived. Roger Boisjoli presented the data and warned that the seals could fail in the cold. Those were expert warnings, but NASA managers pushed back, demanding proof it was not safe instead of accepting the risk. After a private caucus, Thiokol management reversed course and signed off on the launch. Alan McDonald, their engineering manager, refused to add his name to the approval, and then came the turning point. At 11:38 a.m. on January 28, 1986, Challenger lifted off. 73 seconds later, the shuttle broke apart, killing all 7 on board. Francis Scobie, Michael Smith, Ronald McNair, Judith Resnick, Ellison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and Krista McAuliffe. The Rogers Commission found that schedule pressure and a culture of silence overrode expert warnings. The loss stands as a haunting lesson in the cost of ignoring those who know the risks best. On January 16, 1920, the 18th Amendment took effect, banning alcohol across the United States. Lawmakers promised a safer, more moral society, but the Volstead Act left massive loopholes and local police outgunned. Almost overnight, a black market exploded. Al Capone's Chicago empire raked in $100 million a year. New York alone boasted more than 30,000 speakeasies, far more than the old legal bars. Homicide rates soared by 78%, and the government lost $500 million in tax revenue every year. And this is where it went off the rails. Organized crime flourished, violence spilled into the streets, and ordinary Americans flouted the law with every secret drink. On December 5, 1933, Congress repealed Prohibition. The dream of a sober nation had backfired, leaving the country with bigger gangs, bolder criminals, and a taste for defiance that still lingers. On August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans. Levees gave way, and within hours, 80% of the city vanished underwater. Governor Blanco requested federal troops the day before landfall, but confusion and bureaucracy stalled the response. For days, tens of thousands waited in stifling heat at the Superdome and at the Convention Center, many without food, water, or medical care. The moment everything changed was September 1st, when federal officials finally realized 25,000 people were stranded at the convention center, their plight largely invisible for days. Coast Guard helicopters managed nearly 18,000 rescues by September 5th, but for many help came too late. Katrina claimed 1,836 lives, and it hit poor and black neighborhoods hardest. The failures at every level, local, state, and federal, turned a natural disaster into a national shame. Across all 10 blunders, one pattern stands out. Good intentions, blinded by overconfidence or denial, can unleash chaos on a national scale. In the US, the cost of ignoring warnings or underestimating unintended consequences is measured in lives, fortunes, and lasting scars. Which blunder would you add?